The courtroom was almost silent. Joseph Falazzo sat in the witness box. He was leaning in towards the microphone. "I have one flash of memory," he told the jury. He claimed he remembered nothing else. Not the argument, not the blasts, not what happened in the hours after. Chittenden County State's Attorney Sarah George watched him closely. The juror's eyes shifted between Joseph and the evidence photos. "It made me sick," he added, his voice now almost breaking. Across the aisle, Emily's mother sat rigid. What was the truth, and who would believe it? By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with regular uploads every single week. In fact, right now I'm uploading Monday to Friday, so there's lots of new videos and cases for you to watch. If all of this sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. If you could instantly master any skill in the world without practice, what skill would you pick? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated, and I really can't thank all of you enough. However, thank you. But now, on with the video. Emily Jean Schwartz had a way of standing out. She was the girl that ran around in polka dot pants and a striped shirt, dancing. Her stepmother Prudy recalled. She was always very happy. She absolutely loved to sing. She was a good singer. Her friends remembered her for her love of sparkly things. Her cat Oreo, her dog Remy, and summer days at Hampton Beach with her best friend Lauren. Her mother Adrienne described her as a beautiful, aspiring singer whose hope and determination to survive shone brightly. Emily earned her LNA license and found joy in caring for others, but she had dreams of becoming a cosmetologist, a way of helping people feel good about themselves, even when she sometimes struggled to feel that way about herself. She loved adventures, camping, trips, hiking, rock climbing, and trips to Acadia with her family. But in private, there were shadows. Her mother said she'd seen bruises and scratches on her daughter. There were stories about arguments. Arguments had escalated into physical confrontations. Emily sometimes downplayed them. Sometimes she asked for help. But she always went back to Joseph. The weekend before the trip to Vermont, Adrienne said she felt something that she couldn't shake off. I froze. There was a very strong, overwhelming feeling that my life was in danger from him. I wasn't correct that it was my life. It was my daughter's. In the Burlington courtroom, prosecutor Sarah George held Joseph's written statement in her hand. "You told police you went to get breakfast the morning after Emily died," she asked. "Yes," Joseph replied. "You didn't tell them you went to the police immediately because you were scared for your life." "No." She reminded the jury of what he'd also admitted, that after breakfast he'd moved the van with Emily's body still inside it. "Does that sound like self-defense to you?" she asked pointedly. Joseph's eyes stayed low. He said, "I wasn't thinking clearly." But Prosecutor George's tone never softened. She pressed on inconsistencies. The claim that Emily might have had a firearm, even though it was later found under his control. The garbage bag that was found over her head. Every answer seemed to sink him further. From the jury box, one juror scribbled down notes. Another leaned back and crossed their arms. The story Joseph was telling now was not the one that he told police in October of 2021, and George was trying her best to make sure that the jury noticed. The man who broke this case open was not a detective. It was just after midnight on October the 19th, 2021, when Vermont 911 dispatchers took a call from a man named Spencer Lemons. His voice was tense. He said his friend Joseph Falazzo had just confessed to killing his wife. And right then, barely any time had passed. He said it happened that weekend. Spencer told them Joseph said that her remains were still inside the camper van, and that van was now parked at a residence on Meadowbrook Lane in St. Albans town. Joseph had just been riding in Spencer's Jeep when the conversation turned downright chilling. Spencer said that he then kicked Joseph out of the car and called 911 immediately, and very quickly state police located the camper van. The search warrant would come later, but for now, they had in their possession a very possible murder scene, a missing 22-year-old woman, and a suspect who had just put himself at the center of it all. But what they didn't have yet was the truth. On Monday, October the 18th, Joseph showed up at Adrienne and David Bass's home, situated in New Hampshire. He was without Emily. He told them that the couple had argued in a parking lot in Bolton. Emily, he said, got out and just walked away, and that she planned to take an Uber home. He claimed that he couldn't find her when he returned. Mother Adrienne did not believe it. Who waits 2.5 days to even tell anybody their significant other is missing? Stepmother Prudy later asked. When Joseph handed over Emily's license, Adrienne thought it was odd. At the time, she assumed that his strange shivering was from riding a motorcycle in October, but later she came to believe that it was anxiety from lying to their faces. She remembered the moment that he left the house. She thought he seemed threatening and cold, that this was an unspoken warning not to question him. But by that evening, Adrienne and David had reported Emily missing. They told police about the history of DV, about the bruises that they'd seen, about how Emily sometimes reached out for help, but then frustratingly returned to Joseph anyway. At that point, Emily had been gone for 3 days. The family still hoped that she'd simply left, that she'd had enough of the whole situation, and that they might receive a phone call from somewhere safe. But in reality, Emily's family had seen the signs long before this anniversary trip. Her mother recalled seeing scratches and bruises. Friends noticed her energy shifting and her confidence dim. But Emily was loyal, sometimes to her own detriment, and she just could not break it off. There had been notable physical altercations. This included one on New Year's Eve just months before the trip. Emily had even begun divorce paperwork at one point, but the process was stalled. Mother Adrienne said that Emily would come to them for help, only to then share everything with Joseph afterwards, so that made having conversations dangerous. We had to speak in coded language, stepfather David remembered. The mother's gut told her that something was really very wrong. I felt, as a mom, my daughter was not safe, she said, but nothing that they tried could convince Emily to walk away for good. And then, on October the 15th, 2021, she got into that van with Joseph for what was supposed to be a romantic getaway. By the morning of October the 19th, police received that call from Spencer Lemon that turned the entire investigation. When authorities turned up to the driveway in St. Albans town, nearly 60 miles away from Bolton, parked there was a Chevrolet Express bus with curtains drawn tight. Detectives secured a search warrant and opened up the van. Inside the small bathroom, they found 8 plastic garbage bags. One of them was partially opened. Inside it was a leg, still wearing pants. In another compartment, police found a firearm. Behind the driver's seat lay a handsaw. Shreds of evidence still clung to it. The next step was finding Joseph. By sheer coincidence, a state trooper spotted him inside a Maple Fields convenience store. He agreed to go with investigators to the barracks. Once there, Joseph began to talk. Every word that he spoke confirmed what police had already begun to piece together. Back to the beginning of this final weekend, October the 15th, 2021, Emily and Joseph packed their converted Chevrolet Express bus for a fun weekend in Vermont. It was meant to be a celebration, their first wedding anniversary. They would meet Joseph's sister and her boyfriend. They were staying in an Airbnb at Bolton Valley Resort. Emily sent videos to her family of the scenic drive through the Green Mountains. And that evening, they chatted with Joseph's sister outside the van. At 9:39 p.m, Joseph sent a text message to her. "Hey, we're going to take the night to rest. You still drink coffee? We'll see you tomorrow morning." But inside the van that night, the conversation between husband and wife turned into an argument once again. Joseph would later claim that Emily hit and kicked him, and then she went to lay down on the bed. He says he sat in silence for several minutes, and according to his own account, he then grabbed a firearm from the cabinet, jumped on top of her, placed a pillow over her face, and then inflicted 2 blasts. Emily now lay motionless. Joseph put the garbage bag over her head and moved her body to the van's bathroom. The rest of that night passed in silence. He told them that he'd gone to breakfast with his sister the next morning. Then he'd driven a van to St Albans, where about 12 to 15 hours after the event, he dismantled Emily's body with the handsaw and then placed her into bags. No one outside of that camper van knew that Emily, who had been laughing with family just hours earlier, was now wiped from existence.
Lauren, a difficult evening here tonight as friends and family are learning this is no longer a missing persons case, but rather a homicide investigation. Vermont State Police say Joseph Ferlazzo admitted to them that he killed Emily inside of that vehicle in Bolton. In fact, they say he's provided a wealth of information into what may have happened here. This is video from outside the police barracks. There was a lot of movement here around 7:30. VSP's major crime unit vehicle was stationed. There was also what appears to be a converted camper bus nearby. Now, important to mention, I just spoke with Emily's stepmother, Prudy Schwartz, moments ago. Something she did not hesitate to tell me is that she knew something was off when it came to Emily's husband, Joseph Ferlazzo, even though she only met him just one time. She says even Emily's behavior was not like the Emily she knew once she got with him.
Something didn't click the first time we met him, and he wasn't sure what it was about him, but he did not like him. And I said, it's something with his eyes.
Now, when I asked Emily's stepmother, her relationship with Emily, she tells me it was weird to even hear the word stepdaughter or stepmother because she's been a mother to Emily for the past 20 years.
John and Alyssa, Emily's loved ones tell me it's been a difficult 2 years, but they know more challenging days lie ahead as prosecutors prep for what's expected to be an emotional trial for Joseph Ferlazzo. While they wait, though, memories of Emily stay in focus. A contagious personality with a beautiful singing voice.
New songs will come up and we're like, oh, we could totally imagine Emily, singing that not only in the car, but just in a room full of people or friends and around a campfire.
Kathy Eckelberger is a longtime family friend whose daughters were Emily's best friends. She says Emily was a licensed nursing assistant, passionate about cosmetology, loved sparkles, and Hampton Beach in New Hampshire.
She had this infectious laugh.
But that laughter was silenced a little more than 2 years ago. Movement on the case has been slow. Anxiety has been high, and unsettling reminders stick with the family.
And the family is holding on to his belongings. We can't do anything with him until he's prosecuted. We want to be able to get on and remember Emily without having to think about him and waiting for a trial, knowing that that's going to come up and it's going to rip open more Band-Aids.
Eckelberger says Emily's loved ones were aware she was in an abusive relationship and had spoken with her about it, but know how challenging it is for survivors to leave a relationship with their abuser.
5 days into the trial, the jury heard about the gunshot residue, about the recovered Glock, and about the 8 garbage bags pulled from the bathroom of the camper van. Now they were watching Joseph. He leaned forward as his defense attorney asked him to explain, in his own words, what happened that night in October of 2021. He spoke slowly, framing it all as a moment of survival. She was hitting and kicking me, he said. I thought she had the gun, but he couldn't say for sure. Instead, he painted the image of lying in bed while Emily lay nearby, with the fight supposedly being over. Then a blur, a single frame of memory, where his hand held a sharp implement and the cold metal met her skin. The prosecution just let the silence hang before cross-examination.
In October of 2021, Mr. Ferlazzo and his wife Emily made a plan to come to Vermont for a weekend for their 1-year anniversary. You heard from Emily's mother that Emily was excited. She was looking forward to meeting her sister-in-law, Nicole. She was in a good mood and she was looking forward to the trip. They drove up here in their van with their dog from New Hampshire on the evening of Friday, October 15th of 2021. They arrived in Vermont at the Bear Run condos at 7:20 p.m. They parked at a condo complex on Bear Run in Bolton. They met with Nicole for about 15 minutes out in the parking lot inside the van with a plan for Mr. Ferlazzo and Emily to meet them inside the Airbnb to catch up, watch Netflix, and hang out. But they never did. And we know that Emily sent her last Facebook message to her family at 8:13 p.m. We know that Mr. Ferlazzo sent a text message to his sister Nicole inside the Airbnb at 9:39 p.m. Hey, we're gonna take the night to rest, smiley face. You still drink coffee? We'll see you tomorrow morning. Shortly after, Emily's last location data from her Facebook is logged as 10:14 p.m. Instead of going inside and spending time with his sister, Mr. Ferlazzo and Emily argued. They argued because Mr. Ferlazzo had brought Emily on their 1-year anniversary to the very same condo complex that his ex-wife lived. They argued because Mr. Ferlazzo seemed to believe that he didn't have any obligations to be monogamous with his wife, be faithful to her, and she told him she was done. She told him she did not want to be with him, that she could not do it anymore, and that she wanted to leave. And 1 minute after midnight, Mr. Ferlazzo turns off his phone. Done arguing, Emily laid down in bed while Mr. Ferlazzo stayed up and stewed. He became enraged at Emily while she lay in bed scrolling on her phone with her head on her pillow. Mr. Ferlazzo sat on the couch thinking, planning. But instead of walking away from Emily, going into his sister's Airbnb, out of the van, instead he executes his plan. He got up from the couch, he went to the closet, he grabbed this Glock 19 with this silencer. He walked over to the bed. Emily's head was resting on this pillow. He picked up this throw pillow from the couch. He jumped onto the bed. He put this throw pillow over her face, and he shot her once and twice, directly into the left side of her head. And he again sleeps in the van with Emily's body still in the shower. And the next day, he goes out to Burlington with his sister. He gets coffee, and again, he goes out to eat. And again, he says nothing to Nicole about what he did to Emily. And after gallivanting around downtown, he heads back to St. Albans, and on his way, he stops at Hannaford to buy bleach. Because despite him continuing with his life as if nothing has happened, he does have a mess to clean up. He decides that he needs to make her body easier to carry, easier to move, and easier to discard. Mr. Ferlazzo uses this serrated saw and dismembers her arms, her legs, her feet, and her head from her torso. The same torso, absolutely riddled with wounds, including one striking her heart. 3 different knives had her DNA on them. At least 3 different knives were used to her heart 1 time, her abdomen 8 times, and her back 9 times. Then he puts each piece of her body.
Prosecutor George stood and pressed him on every detail. Which came first? When he aimed at her head, followed by the blasts, or the sharp implement? Why did he tell police about the garbage bag? Why still go and meet his sister for breakfast the next morning, if this had just been a moment of desperate self-defense? Joseph answered, but not convincingly. From the gallery, Emily's mother, Adrienne Bass, watched the jury's faces. She would later say, "I didn't believe they were buying it. I could see them lining up what he was saying with the forensic evidence, and it wasn't matching." However, whether this was enough for an actual conviction is another matter. On December the 13th, 2024, after just 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found Joseph Falazzo guilty of first-degree murder.
It's been 3 years since Joseph Falazzo killed his wife, Emily Jean, while the couple celebrated their 1-year wedding anniversary in Bolton. This morning, the jury listening to a portion of Falazzo's testimony for a second time. We heard around 50 minutes where he recounts the events leading up to, during, and after he killed Emily Jean. He says he feared Emily Jean was going to kill him and argues he acted in self-defense.
All I remember is feeling like three things. It was I felt like it was boom, 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 and it was 2 shots, and then her body dropping.
And after hearing the testimony, it took the jury less than 2 hours to reach a guilty verdict. Emily's mother saying this verdict is the next best thing to having her daughter with her, and says she feels relief that justice will be served for the man who killed her.
The only thing that can make it better really is to have my daughter back in my arms and alive and breathing and singing and loving life the way that she was.
At this point, Falazzo will remain held without bail until his sentencing, and now that he's been found guilty, the state says he faces a minimum of 35 years in prison.
4 months later, Judge Timothy Dooley sentenced him to 42.5 years to life in prison. Emily's mother stood outside the courthouse, with the wait of 3 years finally settling. The verdict couldn't be any better, she said. For me, it was really just relief, and feeling like we got the justice that Emily deserves. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.